All right, so listen up. So the 911 remains one of the few sports cars that are offered with a manual transmission. The dilemma here is that it's also offered with a fantastic PDK. Now, all of the 911s I've driven from the 992 generation have been with the PDK, but for the first time, I'm going to drive one with a manual transmission and tell you which one I like best. But before doing that, a thank you to Porsche of downtown LA for access to these two cars behind me. If you're interested in anything in their inventory, I've left their information in the description below. So now let's identify these two cars very quickly and then take them out on the road and drive them back to back. So the silver one you see here is the one with the manual transmission. The white one is the one with the PDK. Now, some of the differences with the manual and the PDK: manual gets Sport Chrono free, basically included in the MSRP and the base price. You got to pay a little bit extra for the PDK to get the Sport Chrono. The PDK gets an electronic limited slip differential, while the manual gets a mechanical limited slip differential with torque vectoring plus. The manual, surprisingly, a lot of people forget about this, weighs 84 pounds less than the equivalent PDK. In fact, a manual Carrera S weighs less than a base Carrera with the 8-speed PDK. Pretty interesting, right? Now, in terms of 0 to 60, 3.3 seconds when equipped with Sport Chrono and the PDK, 4 seconds with the manual transmission. And of course, that's expected. Manuals are a little bit slower in terms of acceleration. And as I'll mention in the driving portion, the gearing is a little different here in the 7-speed. All right, that's enough of talking. Now let's get to the driving. All right, so we're gonna start it off in the PDK car first. And just to lay that discussion to bed, this car, the only thing that's spec'd in terms of performance options is the Sport package, which gives it the Sport exhaust and also the 10mm lowered ride height, which should really only affect the handling and doesn't really play much into the PDK versus manual discussion. So let's not talk too much about the specs of these cars and how different they are. So this is more of a refresher for me, this PDK car. I've driven several of the 911s with the PDK, the base, the Carrera S, the GTS, the Turbo S, and I'm driving this first so I can get reacclimated with the PDK and kind of get the best difference in the PDK versus manual discussion, driving them kind of back to back on the same road. So let's go ahead and get rolling. 3-liter twin turbocharged Boxer 6, 443 horsepower, 390 pound-feet of torque. And let's put it in Sport Plus mode and manual shift. Of course, the gears for you. And let's see what the PDK is all about. Let's turn on to a straight roll here. Oh, nice and nice. So I'm going to be rolling, not going to do launch control, 10 miles an hour. Go. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh man. A reminder of how fast the PDK is. Oh my God. And how fast the Carrera is as well. Oh my God. This car is so fast. Oh my God. Wow. And it does the blip downshifts as well, and it is just so amazing how amazing the PDK car is. It's just, oh, it's an amazing piece of machinery, the PDK. And once the turbos spool up, you can hear it in the background, but okay, let's do it again. And I love how with the downshifts, it blips the throttle so you get that manual transmission feel. First gear. Bang! Bang! Man, and I turned on the windshield wipers as I was hitting the plus. But the shifts are so amazing. They are so lightning fast, and the responsiveness of the shifts. As you pull the paddle, you're in the gear. I drove some other manual automatic transmissions, And that is the biggest difference between the PDK cars and even some of the other double clutches and other ZF automatic transmissions, is you pull the paddle, whether upshift or downshift, and the gear is there. It's just so nicely done. And the most amazing thing about the Porsche PDK is how they've managed to make it so crisp and still engaging at the same time. After all, this is a sports car. Oh yeah, yes. And downshift, pull on the paddle, watch this, paddle, paddle. It's just unbelievable. And the speed is just relentless. The pulling power of this car is so underrated. The 443 horsepower, I would not be shocked if that's a sandbag number. And of course, Porsche is well known for underrating horsepower, and it's no different in this Carrera S, and it's so nicely matched with the PDK. And of course, the PDK, one thing people don't realize or don't know is that the gearing is different in the PDK. And in first gear, I believe it's 40% shorter, and in second gear it's 30% shorter than the manual. And what this does is the torque multiplication down low in those initial launch gears is much greater, and you get this pulling feeling, and it starts to pull so much harder after 4,000 RPM in terms of power delivery. But as you're doing it from a launch, Porsche has tuned this so that you're able to get that launch much better. And in addition to that, due to emissions and regulations and all that other wonderful stuff, the manual has to be geared with in a different way so it can pass the regulations or meet the sound regulations. So it kind of suffers in that sense, but I'm not going to blame the PDK for that. This thing is just it's just amazing. And the nice thing about it here, I've been doing that in manual mode. I'm just going to put it in automatic, and I've been driving fast, so I'm going in third gear now. And if I just give it a light jab, it'll just detect that I want to go fast. See that? It just downshifted automatically. And it's so amazing how they say, oh, the PDK almost like reads your mind. It really does. And it's so effective at doing it, whether you're driving slow or whether you're driving fast. It just does blip downshift there into second as I'm turning here. It just kind of, it's so amazing on how this PDK is tuned. And it's so good that it spoiled the transmission, I guess, dynamic, because it's become normal on how good this thing is. And it's always been good, the PDK, in comparison to other things, and almost like another level in comparison to other double clutches or other transmissions in general. So people always forget that this car started out as a racing transmission in Porsche's racing development program, and then it ended up in the production cars, and it's kind of gone through that process of honing and development, and it just, you can tell it's such a refined transmission, and it's so wonderful to drive whether you're going slow or fast. So now let's go ahead and jump into the manual transmission car and see what that's like. All right, now we are in the silver 7-speed manual car. Let's take this out on the road, see if we can notice the difference between the two cars. So same road, same model car, Carrera S, different transmission. Let's go ahead and Sport Plus, just like the other car. And this car is also equipped with the Sport exhaust, but it does not have the 10mm lower ride height, but that doesn't matter to us right now. Okay, I'm filming this a little bit later in the day. Unfortunately, there's more traffic now, but I think we'll still be okay in terms of getting an idea of what this feels like. Some cops right there, so let's take it easy for a second. All right. Road closure. All right, I wonder what they're doing there. Okay, let's get a little busy here. Downshift into first, rev match. Woo! Oh my God. Wow. Still so fast. Jeez, wow. All right, let's turn here just like we did with the PDK car. Let's nail it from second. Oh, it's a fast manual car. That is for dang sure. Okay, let's do this. Come to a stop. Let's turn around. Come on, car. All right. Too much traffic. All right, let's let these cars go by. Okay, here we go. So first gear, clutch engaged. We are going 5 miles an hour. Mash. Oh, bangs that second gear real nice. Traction is really good. I'm not hearing any tires chirping. It's hugging on the ground back there. And the manual shift, it's just such a crisp, nice feeling shifter. It's just fantastic. Let's get a couple more acceleration pulls here, and then I'll tell you what's happening, because there is a difference. Oh yeah, it's still plenty fast. Oh my gosh. Okay, so rev match downshift when you're in sport and sport plus. When you're in normal, it will not rev match downshift. Okay, so that's an important thing. I know some people don't like rev match downshift. Some people like it. Some people like to do it on their own. So just an FYI. Now, the question I had when I was thinking about this car and the gearing, is it or does it feel much different than the Carrera S with the PDK? And it's not much different, but there is absolutely a difference. And it's not in terms of speed or a shortage of speed or acceleration. It's just in terms of power delivery. And let me explain. So with that PDK car, the gears are a lot shorter and the torque multiplication is immediately noticeable. So in this car, it feels a little different, whereas in the PDK, it's just very urgent to get up and go while you're moving slow in the lower gears. But in this, it feels more linear. Dare I say more like a naturally aspirated motor. So in the PDK car, you get a big shove around 4,000 RPM. But in this car, it feels more linear. That shove is there around that 4,000 RPM range, but this delivers power a little differently. And again, like I said, dare I say more like a naturally aspirated engine. And for me, when I drive, it's kind of hot today. When I drive manual transmission cars, I like a naturally aspirated feel, a linear power band. And this car with its, 7,300 RPM redline, paired with the 7-speed manual, I think it feels right at home. Now, there is a potential downside. And that downside is that it does have longer legs because of that gearing. So this is the same problem that the Cayman has, and it's a little better in this. It's not severe, but you are going excessive amounts of speed in first and second gear. So the potential downside here is that you're not really going to shift a lot when you're driving fast. First and second gear are plenty fast enough. Now, from a shifter, clutch, overall transmission feel. Let's start with the shifter. I love the way it feels. The throws are nice. They're not super short and they're not very long. Nice neutral feeling shifter. Weight is nice. The overall sensation you get from shifting is great. The shifter feel in your hand is nice too. It's a nice size. And the overall shifting is very silky smooth. The feel is also good. The one thing that I do wish it did have, a little bit more of is a mechanical feel. For example, in my Shelby GT350, the shifter feels very, very mechanical. This, although it does have a good amount of feel, if I was to improve it, let me tell you that, it would be in that department. And the clutch itself is just so easy to use and easy to learn. I jumped in here and it's just like bang, bang, bang. I had basically zero learning curve. I came in, the grab point is super easy to understand and to learn. It's very, very neutral. There is no kick or there is no bite that you see in some manual transmissions. It's a very natural and linear, progressive manual transmission and, well, clutch action. So if you're apprehensive and even if you're learning how to drive a manual transmission, this I think would be a good car because the grab point is not tricky, the shifter is good, and it does have the rev match downshift, so you don't have to learn how to do that immediately. You can learn it over time. Yeah, it's just a wonderful transmission and clutch action. Now let me tell you about some of the other things about this transmission. So it does have a somewhat, I guess, pseudo anti-stall feature, and what that does is if you happen to stall the car, you don't have to take it out of gear, turn the car back on. Porsche has a feature where you can basically leave everything the way it is. You can leave it in gear, you can leave it in first gear, and then what you do is you just press on the clutch and the car will turn on. Another thing that is great about this transmission or the shifter itself is that there is a lockout feature in 7th gear. So for example, I was a little concerned. I said, oh, well, what if I want to go into 5th and accidentally go into 7th? Well, Porsche is putting a lockout feature for the 7th gear. And basically what that is if you are in any gear below 5th gear, and let's assume you want to go into 5th gear, it will lock 7th out. It will not let you go into 7th gear from a gear less than 5, essentially. So what you have to do is go into 5th, and then once you're in 5th, you can shift into 7th, or once you're in 6th, you can shift into 7th. So this is a wonderful idea or a wonderful feature to prevent a misshift into 7th, and you get this weird feel. So my overall thought from a driving dynamic, from a shifter, engine pairing driving, it's just a wonderful feeling car. Compared to the PDK, it is different, as I mentioned, the power delivery, but that's not something as a discouraging note that I mentioned. It's just something that you're going to notice when you drive these two cars. So it's a wonderful, wonderful car in terms of driving dynamics, very fun. All of the manual transmission benefits that you get, the fun part of it, the engagement, it's all here. And it's a wonderful car in terms of driving. So now let's wrap it up with some final thoughts. All right, so let's wrap this thing up. Why would somebody buy a PDK-equipped 911? Well, for a couple of reasons. So first, it's probably better to drive on a daily basis in stop-and-go traffic. It's faster. The PDK transmission itself works almost flawlessly, whether you shift or whether it shifts, up shifts, down shifts, it's just magical. Finally, in terms of efficiency, it's a little bit more efficient, couple ticks better in the MPG department compared to the manual. And finally, you could look at this as a positive or a negative. Everybody in your household would be able to drive it. Now, from a negative standpoint, not many people can drive manual transmissions, so let's switch gears and talk about the manual. So, why would you buy a manual transmission 911? It's really simple, actually. It's the engagement and the fun factor, and it's very cliche and everybody says this, but it's true. It can't be described in any other way, and you won't get it unless you know and have driven a manual transmission car. It's just independent of the 911 equation, but when you apply it to a sports car, it's even more heightened. The way the car feels, the way it makes you feel, the positive and negative forces when you're in gear, when you're shifting, the accelerating state that you get, the positive forces when you're moving forward, that's just unmatched in any other car. And the additional bonuses in the 911, it's cheaper. As I mentioned, you get Sport Chrono as standard compared to a base PDK equipped car. And finally, in terms of resale value, the manual transmission cars generally do better, and even in the long run, in terms of collectability, manual transmission cars are probably going to do better 20, 30 years down the road compared to a PDK or an automatic car. So that's pretty much all I've got. Ultimately, I would say that the manual transmission is the one I would get. It's an extremely tough choice because the PDK is just magical. I certainly wouldn't blame anybody for getting a PDK 911, but again, for me, manual 10 times out of 10. So with that, thank you to Porsche of downtown LA for giving me access to these cars. If you happen to be interested, again, information in the link below or in the description below. If you have any questions for me, leave me a comment down below or send me a message on Instagram at DriveSteady. Otherwise, thank you for watching this video. Until next time, drive steady.